What if the most terrifying unknown isn't lurking in the dark corners of our world, but descending from the stars, snatching us away from everything we know? What if a single inexplicable event could erase a person from the fabric of their own existence, never to be seen again? Tonight, we unravel a story so haunting and perplexing that it blurs the line between reality and nightmare. This is a tale steeped in mystery, suspense, and a chilling ambiguity that has lingered for decades. In this episode of Vanished Stories, we delve deep into the vanished world of Daniel Hartman, a man who claimed he was abducted by a UFO and then vanished without a trace. There are stories of missing persons everywhere, but seldom does a disappearance invite cosmic questions, others, worldly theories, and an obsession that defies reason. Hartman's disappearance didn't just shatter his family. It rattled a small American town in the summer of 1976, igniting a mystery that has haunted investigators and believers alike for nearly 50 years. The story begins in the quiet outskirts of Roswell County, New Mexico, a landscape vast and empty, mesas and deserts stretching endlessly, fractured by canyons and the occasional small town. The 1970s were a turbulent time, a world on edge after decades of social revolutions and geopolitical tension. The space race still echoing in collective memory and UFO sightings woven into local folklore after the infamous Roswell incident decades prior. Belief in extraterrestrial visitors switched between skepticism and fervent conviction, and few places felt the weight of those stories like this restless corner of the Southwest. Amidst this backdrop, Daniel Hartman was a figure both ordinary and enigmatic. To his neighbors, a hardworking ranch hand. To his family, a loving and practical man with a grounded presence. But Daniel carried a quiet fascination with the night sky, a habit of gazing up at the stars in silent wonder. It was that wonder that would lead him to a fate as strange as the stars themselves. Tonight, we ask, what really happened to Daniel Hartman? Was his story of alien abduction a frantic plea for help from a troubled mind? Or did it hold horrifying truths buried between the folds of time and space? And with his disappearance, did he vanish simply from this world, or from every trace of reality as we know it? Join us as we venture beyond sight into the chilling unknown of a man claimed by the skies and lost forever. The story of Daniel Hartman isn't just about a disappearance. It's about the flicker of a human soul, caught between worlds, between what is known and what lurks beyond comprehension. Now let's step back and meet the man before the vanishing. Welcome to the quiet life before the unthinkable. In the summer of 1976, Daniel Hartman lived in a modest ranch home just outside the small town of Roswell, known mostly for its arid landscape, wide-open skies, and the lingering whispers of alien mysteries. The town's dust was always stirred by the wind, carrying stories of the unknown that many dismissed, but a few held close like fragile secrets. Daniel was a man of simple habits. Waking before dawn each day, he tended to cattle-fixed fences and worked the land with hands toughened by years of hard labor. His appearance was that of a man carved by sunlight and wind-weathered skin, calloused palms, eyes the color of storm clouds that betrayed a contemplative mind beneath. He rarely spoke of his dreams or thoughts beyond the mundane, yet his introspective pauses during mornings suggested a restless spirit. Friends remembered him as a man who smiled easily, but harbored a subtle melancholy as though he carried unseen burdens. His closest companion was his dog, a loyal German shepherd named Faith, who was almost always at his side. Evenings found Daniel on his porch, staring into the vast expanse of desert and sky, sometimes whispering to himself or gazing upward with a quiet intensity. Though the town was humble and everyone knew each other, Daniel's life had its share of solitude. Friends were few and family connections primarily consisted of distant relatives living in neighboring communities. His mother, Helen, lived some 50 miles away, their visits infrequent but filled with warm affection. Despite his quiet demeanor, Daniel was fascinated by the cosmos. Since boyhood, he'd collected secondhand books about space exploration and UFO lore. The local library's small section on extraterrestrials was his sanctuary. He subscribed to magazines that speculated on life beyond Earth, and occasionally shared theories with those willing to listen, though many dismissed him as a dreamer. The summer of 1976 was especially hot, with soaring temperatures pressing on the land like a weight. Nonetheless, Daniel found solace at night under the sprawling canopy of stars that held more than just light to him. They held promise and questions. A few townsfolk had noticed his longer walks after dusk, trekking toward the desolate hills that edged the horizon, places where the sky seemed closer and the silence deeper. On the evening before his disappearance, Daniel had been seen at the local diner, the Moonlight Cafe, sipping black coffee and reading a worn book about ancient civilizations and their possible contact with beings from the stars. The waitress recalled how he'd seemed distracted, glancing often toward the window as if expecting someone or something. Life for Daniel was a quiet equilibrium, balanced precariously between everyday routine and the vast unknown that consumed his thoughts. Little did anyone suspect that the very thing he chased in the night sky would come for him and forever unravel that fragile balance. July 24th, 1976 began like any other summer day in Roswell County. The sun burned fiercely overhead, and the heat radiated from the cracked earth into the still air. Daniel awoke before dawn as usual, tending to the morning chores and ensuring his livestock were watered. But that day, neighbors would later recall a flicker of something different, an eerie silence that wrapped the town in subtle unease. At 9:15 a.m., Daniel was reportedly seen by his friend Mark Reynolds, another rancher, walking toward the La Mesilla Hills, a remote stretch known for its rocky outcroppings and sweeping desert views. Daniel carried only a small backpack and wore his usual faded jeans and a loose shirt. Mark waved and called out, exchanging polite greetings, but Daniel's response was terse, almost distracted. Later that afternoon, campers nearby, a group of teenagers exploring the backcountry, claimed to have witnessed a strange light hovering above the hills, pulsing with colors not seen in nature. They described it as a large, disc-shaped object, gleaming silver, motionless despite a strong desert wind. At around 3:30 p.m., they saw a figure walking near the beam of light, raising an arm as if shielding their eyes. By evening, Daniel had not returned home. His absence was initially shrugged off as a day trip or a late return, but as night swallowed the sky and his porch light remained dark, concern grew. Faith, his dog, was found outside the gate, whimpering quietly, but refusing to come near, as if sensing something had gone terribly wrong. At 10:45 p.m., Helen Hartman, Daniel's mother, called the local sheriff's office, her voice trembling with fear, reporting her son missing after failing to answer calls and not showing up for their scheduled phone conversation. Soon the small community was roused by the uneasy realization that a man had vanished without a trace. Weeks before Daniel's disappearance, a surge in local UFO reports had jittered nerves, but no one had connected those stories directly to his fate until they began piecing together sightings and strange phenomena near the La Mesilla Hills. Witness descriptions bore a haunting consistency: otherworldly lights, humming sounds, and the unmistakable presence of something not belonging to this earth. The night Daniel disappeared, several townspeople called 911, reporting flickering lights in the sky, a low, mechanical hum, and a silhouette darting among the scrub brush. The authorities were skeptical, chalking it up to weather balloons or pranksters, but an undeniable unease settled over Roswell. The last known sighting of Daniel was at 3:50 p.m., near an abandoned mine where the teenagers said he had stopped, and looked upward, eyes wide, as if mesmerized, before the strange craft allegedly descended slowly. Too slow to be conventional aircraft, too steady to be natural. No one saw him after that moment. The search for Daniel Hartman began almost immediately, spearheaded by the local sheriff's department, with volunteers from the community pouring in desperate to find answers. Search parties scoured miles of rugged terrain, combing through desert canyons, caves, and dry riverbeds under the relentless sun and cold night skies. Despite their intensive efforts, no physical evidence surfaced, no footprints leading away, no belongings dropped, no sign of forced struggle. Faith remained at the ranch, refusing to leave the gate, unnerved by the silence. Drones and helicopters circled overhead, yet the desert seemed to swallow all traces of Daniel into its vast emptiness. Media soon caught wind of the disappearance. Newspapers ran headlines questioning whether Roswell's infamous alien legends were tied to this latest mystery. TV reporters flooded in, interviewing neighbors, family, and witnesses. The story struck a chord worldwide. An ordinary man claimed abducted by an otherworldly force, lost without explanation. The sheriff's department, initially skeptical of extraterrestrial theories, found itself under public pressure to investigate all angles. They questioned Daniel's friends and family, seeking any sign he had planned to leave or suffered mental distress. His mother, Helen, insisted her son was stable, but preoccupied with his stargazing. No rational motive for disappearance emerged. Then a cryptic postcard arrived at the sheriff's office, postmarked from a nearby town, addressed to Helen, bearing only the words, "They took me beyond the stars. Trust no one." Handwriting experts confirmed it matched Daniel's, but how he sent it and from where remained a mystery. The investigation stalled as days turned into weeks. Police called in experts in missing persons and even paranormal researchers, but all leads dissolved into dead ends. A local UFO enthusiast claimed to have found strange radar signals the day Daniel disappeared, but the evidence was dismissed as interference. Interviews with the teenagers who witnessed the craft revealed inconsistencies, but never outright contradictions, each describing the same unnerving presence of an unearthly light and something hovering near Daniel before he vanished. As months passed, the town's collective unease swelled. The mystery became both a public obsession and a source of fear, a reminder that not all questions find answers, and not all disappearances are born of earthly causes. The strangest aspect of Daniel Hartman's case was not just that he disappeared. They believed he had been taken, but taken by whom or what? Among the swirling swirl of suspects and theories, the line between belief and obsession began to blur. One theory suggested that Daniel had staged his own vanishing, fleeing from an unseen threat in his personal life. Skeptics pointed to his sudden secrecy in the months before his disappearance. A local ranch hand, Eddie Cornwell, claimed Daniel had confided fears of being watched, followed by unknown figures in the night, hinting at a government conspiracy. The theory of military involvement gained traction due to the proximity of secretive Air Force bases lurking nearby. Whispers circulated of experimental aircraft and covert operations that could explain the flashes of light and impossible craft sightings. Was Daniel an unwitting witness or a casualty of classified tests? The government denied any knowledge. Other locals blamed a reclusive drifter named Samuel Davis, a man rumored to be part of an occult cult fascinated with extraterrestrials. Samuel was questioned multiple times, but was never charged, maintaining a calm, cryptic silence that unnerved investigators. Some claimed to have seen him near La Mesilla Hills on the day Daniel disappeared. Then there was the town's unofficial UFO experts groups convinced Daniel had been abducted by alien entities, citing physical and psychological symptoms, found post-abduction in similar cases elsewhere, missing time, strange marks, inexplicable memories. Daniel's last known writings, discovered in a hidden notebook at his ranch, chronicled dreams of being taken by beings made of light, an account so vivid no one could dismiss as fiction. False leads punctuated the investigation. A supposed sighting of Daniel in a distant state turned out to be a man with a similar build but no connection. Anonymous tips flooded law enforcement with hoaxes and conspiracy theories. Among the community debates raged, was Daniel a victim of extraterrestrial forces, a pawn in secret government schemes, or simply lost in his own mind's unraveling? Each theory fractured into countless questions, each darker than the last. Nearly 30 years after that blistering summer day, a remarkable discovery reignited the fated case. In 2004, a team of amateur explorers searching the remote canyons near La Mesilla Hills stumbled upon a hidden metallic object, half buried in dust and sand. The object, about 10 feet in diameter, bore no markings, but its strange surface shimmered oddly even in sunlight. Authorities were summoned, and a team of experts examined the craft. No earthly materials matched its composition. Inside, charred remains of what appeared to be organic matter were found, and astonishingly fragments of a worn journal partially preserved. The journal, after painstaking restoration, revealed entries matching Daniel's handwriting detailing encounters with beings he called the Watchers. His words spoke of terror and awe, a promise of enlightenment accompanied by abandonment and isolation. It was a revelation that blurred all boundaries between science and legend. Forensic tests confirmed the organic material was human, but the DNA was inconclusive, lacking clear matches in any database. Theories surged that Daniel's disappearance was no accident, but the consequence of contact with non-human intelligence, and that his remains might have been a relic left behind. Just as the world reeled from this breakthrough, a final twist emerged. A private investigator hired by Helen Hartman before her death revealed encrypted files containing audio recordings. In one grainy tape, an unknown voice whispered cryptic warnings. They never leave completely. The sky holds their shadows. The files vanished shortly after a chilling reminder that some truths may be forever out of reach. This last revelation sent shock waves through the small town, tearing at the fragile threads between hope and despair. Daniel Hartman's case transformed from a simple missing person story into an inexhaustible riddle of what lies beyond human understanding. Daniel Hartman's story is more than a disappearance. It is a haunting saga suspended between the stars and the earth, a narrative riddled with unanswered questions and echoes of the unknown. A hard-working man rooted in the soil of his land, drawn by the mysteries of the cosmos, and then engulfed by those very mysteries in the most irreversible way imaginable. From his quiet ranch in Roswell County to the shimmering enigma discovered decades later, the tale is saturated with tension, the light in the night sky that beckoned and consumed the final postcard, that whispered a desperate warning, and the chilling object that defied earthly classification. We are left to wonder, was Daniel taken by forces beyond our comprehension? Or did human hands conceal darker secrets? In broader light, this story reflects something deep in the human soul. We fear the unknown because it strips us of control and certainty. Daniel's disappearance is a grave reminder of life's fragility, how a single moment can unravel everything familiar, and how some forms of justice may never arrive. It is a meditation on loneliness, not just of the vanished one, but of those left behind, haunted by absence and possibilities too enormous to grasp. As we close this chapter of Vanished Stories, consider this. In a universe vast beyond measure, with stars that burn longer than lifetimes and shadows that stretch farther than memory, do vanished souls ever truly find rest? Or do their stories, like Daniel Hartman's, drift endlessly beyond our reach, echoing in the cosmic dark, forever searching for a way home?